Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world to share their insights and expertise so we can all grow together. I'm your host, Heidi Schock, and the co-founder of the Spotlight to Scale Accelerator, where we drive revenue for companies by making sure they're seen as the authority and go-to expert in their industry versus just another product or service. And today I am joined by CFO and co-founder Blair Cook with Executive Finance Partner Inc. Welcome, Blair, to the podcast. I'm so excited to talk with you today.
Well, thank you so much, Heidi, and pleasure to meet you as well.
I'm going to share a little bit about give everybody a little bit of an idea of your background, and then we'll dive right in. So Blair is a 7-time CFO, a director of multiple companies and organizations, and a thought leader in all matters of the office of the CFO. Blair is the co-founder of Executive Finance Partners, a global professional development and executive coaching firm. He also serves as a corporate director and audit committee chairman of publicly listed companies, Terravest Industries and Clarke Inc. He is also the board treasurer of the Devour Food Film Festival. Blair is the author of the Illiterate Executive and Executive's Handbook for Mastering Financial Acumen. So, wow! First of all, that's incredible, and I just can only imagine how good this conversation is going to be. So, Blair, can you share some insights on your business and the role you play within it?
Sure. Executive Finance Partners has actually existed throughout my career. Many of us have always had kind of a passion that we've always had on the sideline from our day jobs. And so ever since I graduated back in the 90s, I was very fortunate. I did well on a national exam, and all of a sudden people thought I was smart. And so I had this little professional development program that I've been running for 30 years now. And then it came to the point in recent years where that little professional development program has actually turned into a real business. And so that was the impetus of Executive Finance Partners. But what made it successful was the fact that I was actually working in real businesses. I wasn't in an academics institution coming up with theories and practices. I was out there coming up with the ideas and practices and actually utilizing them with clients and with companies that I was working with. And then seeing what worked, what didn't. And that seems to resonate. There's a degree of truth to that with whether it's the companies I work for or teaching or coaching other people.
I'm hearing that a lot, having conversations, and something that I would talk into my clients too with coaching is you need to look at every day, or on a regular timeline, what is working and what's not working, right? Especially when we want to scale and grow. So I think that's a really key point. So, let's just start with the book because you are an author. So your book, The Illiterate Executive, an executive's handbook for mastering financial acumen, helps leaders strengthen their financial understanding. What are the biggest financial blind spots that executives and businesses face, and how can they overcome them?
Yeah, finance, as many people appreciate, it's an intimidating topic, particularly for people who don't have a financial background. Accounting 101 is usually one of the first weeding systems we have in universities to scare people away from the numbers side of it. And that continues throughout their career. And probably 20 years ago, I started working with an entrepreneur who's done very well in Canada, but he was very interested in turning around businesses. And so I had my hands, and a lot of the companies I'm involved with have a turnaround beginning to them. So that means they had a life where they were successful, they fell on hard times, and then, of course, they either resurrected or died. What I noticed in working with a lot of these turnaround businesses is that we had leaders that were running them that is almost self-inflicted. They were stubbing their own toe by ignoring basic financial principles. It was as ready as the nose in my face as to when your inventory turnover is starting to slow down to such an extent, you're going, well, you're not doing something right here. And so it was working with those people. I was saying, like, how come people don't? How come people get into leadership positions and don't understand the fundamentals of the financials of their own business? Mm-hmm. And because it's ready, like I said, it's apparent that you're coming up against a crisis. And of course, it leads you into a turnaround, and often that team that takes you into a turnaround position is not going to be the same team that takes you out of that situation. And so I was trying to preempt some of those executives that find themselves, they can kind of sense that something's going aside, but look at the numbers, read your numbers. They are not just it's not a random number generator each month. Those numbers tell a story. And so that was the impetus to the book, was just to help people who are not financially inept or scared by numbers, try to make it accessible to them and teach them in that way.
Yeah, it's you make a good point. Not everybody that starts a business is really good at the accounting side of it or the numbers side of it because they're focused on their zone of genius, and that's not where everybody's genius lies. So for those somebody listening that's like, okay, I need this book. This book, he's talking to me. Where can they go find it? Where can they go get it?
It's supposed to be on Amazon or through my publisher. And so if you go look at Amazon, or Amazon will direct you to my publisher. I just recently had to upgrade my listing there because Amazon was sold out, and so I've been getting on them to get it back in stock. So yeah, that's the place
Beautiful.
to go
Yeah, and we're going to share your contact information at the end so people
for
can also
sure.
reach out to you. Absolutely. So, what are the biggest trends that you're seeing shaping the future of finance and executive leadership? And how should businesses adapt to stay competitive?
Ooh, that's a mouthful right there. The future of finance. Let's start with that. You know, sometimes what is old is timeless. And so some of the things I work with coaching my clients on is really the fundamentals of the soft skills of telling a story, of presentation skills. Those skills are universal and not going away. So what is changing is the how they're getting access to data, the tools they have at their disposal to represent those stories. You know, the sources of data are becoming more accessible than they've ever been in the past. You know, just capturing more data points. And so now, you know, in the office of the CFO or the finance function, you've got not only access to the financials, but you can reach over into the HR systems and the CRM systems and those things and start trying to triangulate and tease out some really interesting insights that help formulate the strategies and the tactics, whether it's around, you know, new products or new geographies or new channels or new customers, you know, and you can tease out some of these insights and just manage the business better. So I think it's, you know, it's very much driven by technology. Finance people, I'm an accountant, I'm not saying this in any bad way, but we tend to be a laggard when it comes to adopting new technology. And so I think like AI is going to make a huge impact on finance in years to come. You know, I don't have a week that goes by that my clients aren't curious to know what are other people doing around AI. And I'd still say we're only tapping in. We're in the first inning of this ball game when it comes to AI and finance. We still haven't connected the big wires, which is connecting data to analysis to helping, because there's a lot of work that goes into data analysis, so transforming those data analysis into those key insights. That once those wires connect, you know, then it's going to be really powerful. You overlay those soft skills I talked about, you know, and I think you're going to have the finance function is going to be as strong as ever as being that sounding board, that partner in business, that trusted advisor to the board of directors and the CEOs out there.
Hmm. So, Blair, you brought up AI. How do you see AI transforming financial leadership and executive decision making in the coming years?
Yeah, right now it's certainly the early iterations of this is around transactional. It's around automation. It's around, you know, taking invoices, coding them, you know, and processing them without humans touching them. So that's the first iteration of AI. Like I say, the highest level is going to be, you know, the other thing you're going to start seeing is, you know, taking the data analysis and doing forecasting, predictive forecasting. And so it's like looking historically at all that data that's happened in the past. And then instead of us spending you know, some companies spend weeks, if not months, trying to forecast and only to find that 3 months into the year, their forecast has already been thrown out the window. You know, it's very difficult to do. And again, if you have the analysis and a rich source of data, you know, let the AI do it and press a button, and an hour later, you've got a forecast that's out there. And you know, if they can hone that and make that fairly accurate, maybe that's a better way to approach that. You know, the final level is going to be this idea where we have this data lake from all these different sources, and we can start asking questions like, what is my, you know, customer profitability in a geographic region, or how's that been trending over time? Or then even sucking in competitive data, benchmark my profitability of my product line against my three biggest peers and teasing out, you know, their tactics versus my tactics. And so when you start asking the AI these kind of questions and in real time, you know, what would take literally weeks in the past to tease out and answer these questions, you know, if we could do this in hours or days or even minutes or seconds, you know, that's when we're really going to see AI transforming the office of finance.
Yeah. So there's, we have AI and there's also, right now there's a lot of people are learning it and they're maybe a business owner is, like you had mentioned, slow to adopt it. So what are the biggest risks and opportunities that AI is presenting for financial executives and businesses, and how can these organizations strategically adopt AI while also mitigating potential pitfalls?
And that too is part of just the infancy, the first inning, because the challenges I see out there. Number one is AI tends to hallucinate, and in finance we cannot hallucinate, and so there's we have to trust it, and you put an answer into a black box and it spits back an answer to you. You have to be able to verify, trust but verify, and so we haven't gotten to the point where I don't trust it, and there's been plenty of examples out there where you're getting back answers that sound good, but may actually be a hallucination of the AI.
Mm.
The second thing that's going to be an issue is around data security and sharing information using whatever it is. So you're going to have a secure, segregated environment where you can put your data, not share it with the world, but allow the AI to benefit from the model or the connection to the world. So that's going to be an issue to deal with it. And I'll just give you three. The third one is going to be just the change management associated with it. It's hard for people to do business differently than they have done in the past. And so it's going to be adopting that growth mindset to take on a new way of doing business. Or, some people, and, a lot of people are like, oh, well, this is going to make my life better. But some people actually fear for their jobs or their positions, or it's uncomfortable. I'm going to have to learn a new skill set. That's not what I wanted to do when I'm, 55 years old. And so that change management aspect of adopting a new technology, I mean, accountants are finally just catching up to the cloud. That's been around for almost 15, 20 years. And they're still, I've got a number of businesses that still run legacy systems and on-premises solutions. And so it takes us a while for us to get into it, but AI has been moving so fast in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I think it's that change management, getting people not afraid. At least COVID came along, and we're less afraid to press the button, because before COVID came along, accountants were the last person to press the button about something they didn't know what would happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're in a really sensitive space, right? These accountants are in a very sensitive
For
space.
sure.
Can't make mistakes. Their clients are relying on them, and any business owner too, when it comes to their revenue or their bottom line, that is something that they need to watch closely. And just, hoping AI does it right isn't something that's a really area we want to be testing it. So I can imagine where that's a little slower in this kind of space, to kind of like jump in to the whole AI
Oh,
thing.
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, we've got to be 100% certain. We can't be, I always say there's old news and you don't want to be circulating old news. You want to be, almost in a Twitter generation or an X generation or whatever you want to call it, a Threads generation, where everybody's expecting the answers momentarily. But accounting and finance, unfortunately, it's very difficult for us to maintain integrity and credibility and deliver on that. And so very often we're accused of circulating old news. But even worse than circulating old news is circulating fake news. And so that too is a challenge in finance, is making sure, and again, we sometimes don't have time to nail it down. Like I have clients that, again, run $1 billion business, and when they print out their P&L, it's down to the penny. And I'm going, I know it's not that accurate. So why do you represent it that accurately? There's a lot of estimates that go into it. There's a lot of softness in accounting that people don't appreciate. But there's a fine line. We call that materiality in the finance world. So understanding what is that threshold for relevance for our users, and then that's how we adapt to trading off this timeliness versus accuracy trade-off that we ultimately have to make.
That's interesting that you shared that, because I'm not in the finance space, and I thought that was the goal, to get it down to the penny.
It makes it look way more accurate than it is, and it just isn't. And you think about, there's so many uncertainties, and there's fair value measurements, and we've had all kinds of talk about fair value issues over those decades. But there's so many estimates and judgments that go into, like, what do you pick as a rate of return to discount, to determine, that somebody has to use judgment to pick that number. It's not given to you. It's not tied specifically to a U.S. Treasury bill yield or something like that. So there's a lot of softness that people don't appreciate. That's part of the education part of accounting and finance.
Yeah. Wow. Very interesting. I'm intrigued by that. So, let's talk about some more of the challenges. You just brought up some challenges. What factors are making it easier, and also what factors are making it more challenging to scale in your market?
Um, okay, to scale, and we're talking executive finance.
Mhm.
Yeah, so in executive finance, again, thought leadership, professional development, executive coaching. The easiest thing is technology for me. My business is virtually technology. The way my growth strategy is around partnerships. And so I don't do marketing myself. I don't do sales myself. I leverage I'm a content creator. For the most part, I'm a thought leader. For the most part, I do consulting and one-on-one coaching for the most part. But technology enables it all. And so it's a matter of reaching out to, and I've got partners around the world that distribute content. I've got partners in the US and here in Canada that do a lot of the marketing and sales and registrations, the back office stuff for me. So it allows me just to focus on developing content that's relevant to financial executives and companies and the like. And so that's how I scaled my business. It's not people dependent, it's more technology dependent and
Mm.
relationship driven, which I think that that probably lends itself to a large swath of folks that are out there in the services and content creation business.
So you talked about marketing partners. How difficult is it to find good marketing partnerships?
Yeah, good being the emphasis. There's not a day that goes by that I probably don't have 3 or 4 people reaching out trying to partner with me on various things. But finding good ones, my hit rate is probably 1 in every 10 turns
Mm.
out to be something and then every once in a while, that 10th one you find, and it opens up all kinds of new doors and new opportunities. So you got to kiss a few frogs before you find the prince or the princess kind of thing.
What
So.
what have you found that stands out to you when people reach out to you? That I'm curious about that because you said, and that's especially if we're on LinkedIn, we're always getting messages, right? And people
Oh,
reaching
for
out. So
sure.
what makes a marketing partner stand out for you then?
Certainly the highest ones, my highest and best partners are ones with a lot of credibility. So for instance, in the finance world, it's like a CPA institute or the US CPA or a state institute, something somebody with a high degree of credibility. Again, and that credibility attracts customers. And so I'm leveraging their brand. And so or you take a look at somebody who's been around for a number of years. And so I've got my oldest partner I've been working with for 12 years now, and we do a lot of business together. And I've got a couple of those and those are the ones that have paid dividends over the years. Somebody who's just a fly by night or starting up, like there's every day somebody starting up another training business or another coaching business or another, whatever, a YouTube partnership kind of thing that's out there. There's so many of those out there. And to be honest, I don't have a way to quickly evaluate them. And I could be on calls all day long trying to build my market that way. But I'm much more focused on trying to find good quality partners with a track record that I can trust. I don't know how many. If you don't have to look very far out there to find my content's been pirated and sold in various countries. That
Oh,
again, I
wow.
don't have the time and resources to track them all down. I'm
Right.
happy that I'm getting the exposure, but that's just the risk that you have with putting your content and sharing it with too many people or fly by night operators like that.
Yeah, that's such a good point. So when you get leads, first of all, how do you have your marketing partners, but are there other ways that you use to generate new leads and clients? And when you do generate those new leads, how do you approach them?
It's good. I generally take calls. So anybody, like if somebody reaches out to me through LinkedIn, I take a look at their background. And that's why I always tell people it's really important to make sure your LinkedIn profile is complete, it's interesting, it's up to date, it's compelling, because that's how I determine which calls I take and which calls I don't take. So that's a huge part of it. As I said earlier, I don't do any outbound calls. So I'm very fortunate. I've been doing this for 35 years. So fortunately, I have a good reputation. Stuff like the book and some of those things help build that. And so fortunately, I've got enough referrals just by word of mouth and through long-term relationships that it keeps my plate full. So there was a time when my partner and I started this company 10 years ago. When we first got together, it was hard going, trying to do the outbound, reach out, So we go to a lot of conferences. We build and cultivate relationships with people like in different provinces and states, and trying to we identify this would be really great if we had this institute as a partner, and so we'd have to figure out how can we find a way to meet them or reach out to them. And so that for a few years, that was a lot of flying around, going to conferences, like I say, making calls. And at this point now, the flywheel's kind of going, and it's just a matter of just selectively adding to the flywheel as we can take on more business.
It's building those relationships, that credibility, and continuing being consistent, right? That's
It
one
is.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think firing out a whack of emails. I've tried that. It doesn't work. Do you really those connections? Relationship selling is so important, and
Mm.
so you have to. It's very often who you know. It's an introduction. Somebody else refers you to somebody else. Those are those are the highest conversion rates that you're ever going to get. So finding and cultivating those relationships and maintaining those relationships, even after you've done an engagement, can sometimes pay dividends. Sometimes not instantly. Sometimes it's a year or 2 years down the road. But they go, oh, listen, Blair was in here a couple of years ago and he had a really good topic, and you should talk to him. And they connect us, and next thing you know, you've got it's almost a high conversion probability that there's a sale to be made there.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. That you're dropping so many gold nuggets. It's like get those doors open, build relationships. You never know who with that relationship that you build is going to lead to another relationship down the road. Most of the time, it does. And also, this is the long game, right? We're not looking to just turn them into a client. Well, we want them as a client many times, but it may not happen in the next week. Like you said, it could take a year, 2 years, but eventually being consistent and just focusing on true, authentic relationship building is really, really key. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you are 7 time CFO, so you have a lot of experience. So as CFO and a co-founder, what are your day-to-day responsibilities? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, CFO, a lot of these CFO relationships came through transformation situations. And so whether they were, I did a startup with a cryptocurrency company. That was my shortest one. It only lasted 3 months. Craziest ride of my life. But at least I was employee number two, and then we got acquired twice in 3 months, and it was just nuts.
Wow.
So that was the crazy one. But then I've done a bunch of turnarounds, and so but turnarounds are, we're obviously trying to resurrect the business and bring it back to life. And then I've done growth companies who have got through that beta phase, and then really in that case, it's like, how do we scale this thing? How do we take it, make it big? How do we 10x it? How do we raise the capital associated with it?
Mm.
And it's very often, some of those times it's a consulting engagement. Then sometimes it's just like, we like you. Please stay on and be our CFO as we go through this transformation period. And so a lot of I think my longest CFO stint was 6 years, and my shortest was 3 months. So, and then everything in between, depending on that. Those are the ones that interest me, is like a situation that we gotta work our way through.
Mm.
And Clarke Inc. and Terravest, the two companies that I sit on and serve on the board on. I've been involved in Clarke Inc. since 2007. I was a CFO at one point. It's a publicly traded company in Canada. It's a shareholder activist catalyst type of company. We've invested in everything from art to transportation to oil and gas, like every sector. It's just deep value turnaround type of stuff.
Mm.
Businesses. And then Terravest just happened to be one of those investments that spun out of Clarke, and it's become probably one of the most successful companies in Canada in the last 10 years.
Wow. So yeah, your experience runs the gamut. You've talking about a growth mindset. You were like thrown into different situations and just rock and roll with it. So, what are for your specific company, what are your growth goals for the next 6 months?
My growth goals are primarily, I retired from being my last CFO last year.
Mm.
So this is probably the first time in a while that I've actually dedicated myself full time to executive finance. And so for me, I have two real pillars in executive finance, which is the professional development, which is what I characterize as taking people who are new CPAs, new financial professionals, and helping them be more successful in moving through those middle management ranks. As you move up from an accountant to a controller, to a director. So I develop a lot of professional development, thought leadership to help people develop those skills. And then executive coaching is the premium product. It's working with CFOs themselves, making them more effective and in evolving into that role I talked about earlier, being that trusted advisor to the CEO and the board of directors.
Mm.
And so it's like, and there's a whole slew of like communication, soft skills, strategic mindset, influence, persuasion, all those things. And those are the universal skills that will never go away. As much as AI is going to help us with the assembly and bringing information together, but somebody's still going to tell that really compelling story,
Mm.
and guide and be that trusted advisor and guide organizations to make smart decisions around capital allocation and investment and the like. And so that's where I spend a lot of my time now, one-on-one with individuals in that capacity.
So who are the individuals, or who are the people that, if somebody's listening and they want to work with you or reach out to you or learn more, who is it that you actually work with?
Yeah, one-on-one, it's primarily it's a couple of categories. One, it's either a new CFO, and this is their first time being a CFO, and they want to hit the ground running. And as somebody who's done it 7 times, and if I was to do it the 8th time, there's still things for me to learn. The span of influence and control inside of finance has never been broader, and it just keeps getting broader and broader. And so you need to learn more and more. And so I try to help those new CFOs, at least hit the ground running and become effective in the first, say 90 days or 100 days. So that's one capacity. And the next one is very often we have a succession plan in place. We have a CFO that's moving out or moving up, and maybe they become the CEO. I've got a couple of clients like that. And so they've got their successor in mind as an internal hire. So he's a director level now. It's like, okay, I need you to fill my shoes. And so it's a very similar, it's just a little bit earlier. And then the third one is just existing CFO. I have a number of CFOs who have been CFOs for years and in different capacities, but they're looking for that sounding board. And again, they tap into, I guess it's my breadth of experience. They want to know, like I've been a CFO. There's different contexts for CFOs. I just told you, like startup, turnaround, growth. And so maybe I've been in a mature company. I've been a big Fortune 500 company, and now I'm working in a startup. And I need to raise capital. I haven't done that before when I was in a large public company. And
Mm.
so I'll come in, I'll help them out with, here's the things we need to work on. Here's, working through the agreements and the process and the like. And so it could just be existing CFOs looking to broaden their skill sets, or they're in different contexts than perhaps they were in their previous roles. And so again, that breadth of experience is valuable to them.
So what do you see? Let's talk about like bottlenecks. So, because a lot of companies have bottlenecks, and it's always interesting to hear where other people are, where they have theirs. So, on the flip side of the growth goals, what do you see has some of the biggest problems or bottleneck for you all right now?
That's a good question. There's a lot of bottlenecks that get created, especially with legacy systems, that aren't well integrated. And we are in the world of apps right now. And so everybody, I've had it happen in different organizations. There's 2 ways you can do it. You can put an ERP in place, but that is really challenging to get everybody to agree to use one system. And I've got a couple of clients have done it well, and then some have been a disaster. And it's just like, because you can't control the proliferation of apps, and people start saying, well, listen, I want to use my own CRM.
Mm.
And then the people over in HR say, well, I got my own HRMS that I want to use. And then all of a sudden your data is just spread all over the place. And so, then finance comes in. Well, then we need another system on top of all that to bring all the data back together again. And so that is a challenge. And that whole process of bringing that together or getting everybody to agree to use one system, that is a challenge. And that's where finance can really slow down. And so what you end up seeing in practice, probably, I don't know, 90%, I'm just making this up, 90%, the majority of companies out there use Excel like crazy, trying to bring all this information together. It's labor intensive, it's inefficient, it's error prone, it's, all those things. And that's the biggest challenge we have in finance today is trying to find a way. It's there at our fingertips, but the discipline, the technology, the technical know-how, how to suck all that data and control it. This is where I think AI will get there. It's kind of not there yet. It's not clean yet.
Yeah, getting all the pieces to communicate with each other
Yeah,
in
for
a way
sure.
that everybody enjoys it and knows how to do it. So Blair, this has been amazing. I have one more question for you. If we were to revisit this conversation in a year from now, what would define a successful year for you?
Um, yeah, what would define? For me, it's I've got a formula, and to me, it's the more content I come out, there's an infinite number of areas to generate more content. The more partnerships would be successful to me. And to be honest, those two directly contribute to revenue and bottom line for me. So it's as hard as I want to work. I'm always cultivating new partnerships. I've got a coaching business. I've got a partner down in LA that she and I have teamed up with to do the coaching, which works really well. I'm looking for more partners on the PD side. And again, I put them through a process, and do they have the same passion and same interest as I do, and can they complement me with different skill sets? And so I've got a couple of people that I'm working with now. That's another gas pedal for me, is to build more partnerships. So it's that sort of thing. So next year, hopefully, I've got more partnerships, more courses, more content equals more revenue.
Yeah, you at the beginning you shared, it's looking at what's working and what's not working, and you're taking what's been working with you that's been driving your growth and revenue growth, and you're going to continue on that path. So that's amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this. Where can people reach out to you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, the easiest way is just to connect through my website. It's executivefinance.ca. I'm a Canadian, so that's the .ca. And it's Blair at executivefinance.ca. It's the easiest way to connect with me. Or you can follow me on LinkedIn. Just take a look there.
Yeah, and he's on LinkedIn. That's what I was going to share. We're going to have all of Blair's information and contact information in the show notes. So if you can't access, go check, connect with him right now. We've got you covered. Blair, is there anything else you want to share that I didn't get to? Oh, and check out his book. Go to Amazon or the publisher and reach out to him and ask about that as well. You want to definitely get your hands on that. And is there anything else that you'd like to share that I didn't touch on or ask you?
No, the last little kernel that just jumps into my mind here is focus. And a lot of the entrepreneurs I work with and companies start out, they're very broad in their thinking. What I found with executive finance, it took me a long time just to narrow it down to two things and to focus on those two things. Because, I've been to apps, I've been in books, I've been in, you can go crazy with all the different podcasts like yourself, and to be honest, I don't have the bandwidth to do all of those things. So focus. I think I think a lot of businesses suffer from a lack of focus.
Yeah, you're right. They're like trying to do it all at once, right? Or throwing spaghetti at the wall and trying to do too many different things.
And I don't, yeah, you want to encourage experimentation, but at the
Right.
same time, fail early and try to figure out what works.
Yeah, what's working, what's not working. Let's cut what's not working, tweak it, keep testing, but continue doing what's working and
For sure.
getting strategic on your time and where you're putting your energy, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So there you go. There's my final comment.
I love it. It's perfection. Blair, thank you so much for being here today and spending your time with me. Connect with Blair Cook with Executive Finance Partner Inc. You can go to executivefinance.ca. Also, Blair Cook in LinkedIn. And he is very personal, very easy to talk to, and he'd love to connect with you. Thanks again,
Thanks,
Blair, for
Heidi.
being here. Thank you for listening to the Business Growth Spotlight podcast, and we will see you on the next episode. If you did enjoy my conversation with Blair, please review us on your favorite platform that you're listening to the podcast and give us 5 stars. And if you're watching Blair and I on YouTube, please subscribe and let Blair know that you heard him here. We'll see you on the next episode.